Welcome to SAM Conversation, a program of South Asia Monitor. To discuss the latest affairs between India and Myanmar, it is a pleasure to invite Mr. Rajiv Bhatia, former ambassador to Myanmar and a very senior scholar in the Gateway House, a well-known think tank in Mumbai. The Senior General Laing's visit to Delhi from 30th May till 3rd June was, I think, a very good development. It matters a lot to them, to Myanmar, that they've been able to get, and they've been invited to visit India officially, and the fact that this began from Bodh Gaya, which is the world's we are the home of Buddhism. We are the home of Buddhists all over the world, and that, of course, that was very significant. And then a major issue in discussion was the rare earth minerals. It is also reported that now the junta is trying to trying to fight against the Kachin independent and the Kachins and the Karens, who occupy about 42% of the landmass so far. Without going into much further, I request you to comment, Mr. Bhatia.
Thank you very much, Colonel Bhat. I thank you, and I thank Sam for organizing this. Let us try to decipher, for the benefit of the viewers, the context of the visit of President Wu Min Aung Hlaing and the main achievements of this visit. And I will be very brief so that then it can really be a conversation. So first of all, Myanmar was under direct military rule from 2021 when the coup was arranged, which derailed completely the hybrid democracy which was in operation since 2011. The coup was carried out by General Min Aung Hlaing. And then the end result of the coup was that the country stood fragmented and divided mainly in two parts. One, which was under the control of the military government, and the other, which was very much under the management of a variety of ethnic groups and opposition groups which refused to accept the authority of the military government. So the civil war was going on, people were suffering, economy was in shambles, there was ostracization by the world community, and slowly, therefore, military began to think in terms of trying to get out of this morass, and they thought that they would organize an election. Now, this election, according to them, was a fairly fair and representative election. According to opposition, it was a fraud perpetrated on the people. Be that as it may, elections took place, the new government came into being, and now the general, who was the military head and the head of the Tatmadaw, the Myanmar army, became the president. In that light, the issue comes as to why India decided to invite him. Again, I will let the facts speak for themselves. India was going to host the International Big Cats Alliance Summit. It's an organization which looks after the big cats, and Myanmar is a member. So Myanmar was invited to that summit. Then lo and behold, the summit was cancelled because of extraneous reasons. And that is when Naypyidaw, the capital, and New Delhi decided that it is time for a bilateral standalone visit. That is how the visit took place. And as you rightly said, Colonel, but right in the beginning, it emerged from the convergence of interests and perspectives of two countries. They both felt that they need each other for good reasons. Myanmar is feeling uneasy, having been excessively dependent on China. India is always guided by its neighborhood first policy, wants good relations with an immediate vital neighbor like Myanmar, and hence the visit took place. So the context was important. The respective motivations and drivers were very important and relevant. And now probably you would like to say something on how you look at the outcome of the 5-day visit, because it was a very packed program for the president.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatia, for bringing out some important points. While it's, I think, it's fine that we invited the junta leader who became the president, but we have, it's a delicate relationship. There are complexities in the India-Myanmar relationship, because here's the military junta, and which holds just a little over half of the landmass as things stand. And then you have the Kachin Independent Army, the Karens, and some other groups, but mainly the Kachins, who hold sway. And it is very necessary for us to keep them engaged also. After all, there are people of these communities who are part of our, they're part of our Northeast. They inhabit states like Manipur, Nagaland. It is these two, which share borders with Myanmar. At times, having been in Manipur in the late 80s, early 90s, my memory of a visit to More, the border town of Manipur, which is the opposite to that in Myanmar, is Tamu. One has had the pleasure of seeing people come from morning to trade. And this was a place where you could enjoy masala dosa from the Tamils, chana bhatura from the Punjabi Sikhs, and of course cow sway by the Burmese Myanmar people who come in. I don't know what the state of that interaction is presently, because a lot has happened in Manipur, which concerns at least some of these communities. But whatever it is, India needs to, do its balancing act and, keep all the groups which hold sway in Myanmar, keep them engaged. And of course, our aim is to get, and we have to be very wary of China. We are capable of doing so, and we should not hesitate if ever when and that's one of the major major drives that we have to be into now.
Both your points are very valid, Colonel Bhat. The ethnic issue and the China issue. On the ethnic side, I think we need to stress to our viewers that this is a very diverse nation. There are 8 major ethnic groups there. In terms of big and small, if we count, there are probably over 130 groups in the country. Now, among these groups, some are active on the eastern side, that is on Thailand side. You mentioned about Karen, they are important there, and that rebellion by them has been going on since independence. Then the northern side along the China border, you have Shans and Kachans and a few other groups which play a very significant role in terms of bridging China with Myanmar. But our main concern, India's main concern, is on the India-Myanmar border region, which is the western side of Myanmar. And here I would like to elaborate your point that the four Indian northeastern states, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, and above that, right in the north, Arunachal Pradesh, all four of them have their borders touching Myanmar. And therefore, what happens on the Myanmar side is very, very important because they are ethnically related for centuries, for millennia. Now, this whole area is largely under the control of the ethnic armed groups. You spoke about Tamu More. As far as I know, according to the latest information, the border trade probably is not fully normal there at all. And so it's important for India to keep in touch with groups which are holding control over that territory, whether it is Kachins or Chins or the Sagaing groups, or in the south, of course, you have the Arakan army controlling the Arakan region. Now, I've had the chance to, attend some conferences where I found that the situation is changing in the country. The government is gaining more and more control. And ethnic groups, while they are aware of the need for unity, are doing their best to safeguard unity, but they have an uphill task. So in that situation, as you very rightly said, Indian government has to do the balancing act. India follows its two-track policy, namely, we maintain good cordial relations with the government of the day, but we also keep in touch with those who are trying to bring democracy in that country. Finally, with regard to the China factor, this is the most popular topic among all the Myanmar scholars. There is no doubt that China today is enjoying a major role in Myanmar. They have control over political, economic, diplomatic, geopolitical scenario. But I think other countries are not giving up. And that is the reason why Myanmar has developed good relations with Russia, Vietnam, Kazakhstan, Belarus, and certainly India. They are also trying to develop relations with other individual member states of ASEAN. And so in that light, we can make a final point, which is about ASEAN. ASEAN has followed for the past 5 years the 5-point consensus on Myanmar, essentially saying that the rival parties should stop fighting and start talking. But ASEAN has not been able to implement that consensus formula. And now that there's a new government, which is a limited democracy government, I think we must watch carefully as to what ASEAN will do in the coming months. That is where we are internally as well as externally.
Very, very well brought out, Mr. Bhatia. It is, what has happened, and there's now whatever, a lot of what has happened, eventually when we go back in history, the British are to blame, but that doesn't simply help us to just, keep drumbeating about that. But they did a lot of damage. Look at Manipur, what size it was, the Meitei kingdom. And look at what happened after, they had a war in 1891. The Meiteis were the last to succumb to the British. And then it is, the British said, now let's dilute their power by injecting cookies. Cookies are part of the Chin, cookies, Mars, into Manipur, including the valley. And well, I have seen all, communities till the 90s live peacefully, but bubble had to burst at some stage. And it did. And of course, China has a hand in it. We have to still steer things. Now, as far as the democracy movement is concerned, we supported to the extent that there were members of that movement living in the house of Mr. George Fernandez, God bless his soul. In a part of his house, even when he was became the defense minister, he didn't stop. But be that as it may, today what we have to do is to be to just keep trying and try and get the best of, and even to nobody is given a nobody is given a thought to it, but India is actually poised to be a very good intermediary between the junta and the others. We in the past, the Mizo uprising was one which we very effectively, very peacefully, after a lot of blood was being spilled, we were able to peacefully bring it. Here again, we should try, because it is just, we have to keep trying. We have to keep trying.
Yeah. I think you are absolutely right there as well. When you were speaking about Mizoram, I remembered my own recent visit to that state. It's the front state as far as Myanmar is concerned. The other front state also is Manipur. The ties are very old, they are very intimate, and they remain live. So when trouble began in Myanmar, a lot of Burmese sought shelter in Mizoram because there are ethnic ties. When they are in trouble, they are going to come to their uncles and other relations. And Mizoram simply welcomed them, with open arms.
Yes.
And even though, the governments were not able to perhaps extend as much assistance as they were expected to, but people came forward and helped to welcome the people who were affected by the conflict. The same thing, or even in a deeper way, it goes to Manipur. The connection between the troubles in Manipur and the situation in Myanmar is very significant. It was quite unprecedented that regions on both sides of the border became disturbed around the same time. So in that light, I think I should explain that the government of India's policy is very clear. I think this is all India policy. The government is now trying to regulate the border movement and the inflow and outflow of goods in a regular, legal, lawful manner. As you know, you would have remembered from your own time how much of illegal flow of goods, people, arms, drugs, and other kind of international crime have been the part of the scenery. So now the present government is very clear that, whatever is the free border movement regime, that has to be restricted. The border has to be properly demarcated. And then smart measures have to be introduced so that all these negative activities are stopped. I think this is something that was discussed during the visit. And I want to assure you that both governments want a proper stability and security in the border area. Of course, critics say that you are talking to the wrong man because General Minong Lang doesn't control much of the border. But, the authorities on their side keep saying that they are in conflict with the ethnic groups, and sooner or later, Myanmar state will take control of the border region. So we have to wait and see there. There was one more thing I wanted to highlight because you very rightly began with that. You're pointing out that that president's coming to Delhi, but first touching down at Bodh Gaya. I think this was a very exceptional symbolism. It showed the old connection of the people. I want to assure you that when I was spending my 3 years as ambassador in Myanmar and when I traveled around the country, I never ever met a Burmese who did not express the wish to visit India at least for once so that he could go and offer prayers at Bodh Gaya, at the Mahabodhi temple. So yes, they see India as the land of the Buddha, which they must visit once in their lifetime. It is a very powerful and abiding bond between our two countries.
Mr. Bhatia, you brought out some very, very important points, very, lucidly. And one is about the security. Security and the and helping trade to carry on. We today have the capability. We have security forces which have the capability to handle the situation. Because now, this we have to accept the fact that during almost 7 decades of Congress regime, or almost all the time, I'm not a political person, but this is something which just keeps coming up. Enough right decisions were not taken. We've seen ever since 2014 a lot of improvement in the northeast security scenario. Here it's very important to have the trade going like it used to in Moretamu at many other points, and keep the security with modern methods. And as far as this Buddhism aspect, just I cannot help comparing that Mr. US secretary who comes to India, he lands up in Kolkata and goes to the Mother Teresa's, which raises so many questions. Which raises so many questions. And here's someone from, even if he's from a junta leader, but he's shown no doubts about the importance of his chance, his opportunity to visit Bodh Gaya.
Yes, I think moving from the cultural to the business side, which again you triggered my thinking on, is also very important. We must remember that 5 years of coup and civil war and instability have made Myanmar economy very vulnerable. And so one of the key motivations of President Min Aung Hlaing coming to India was to see how the economic relationship and cooperation could be increased. On this, I believe he made a very big attempt to convince not merely the government, but also the business leadership in India, both in Delhi and Mumbai. He had extensive discussions with our business chambers. He even had a separate interaction with the governor of Reserve Bank. His delegation included governor of Myanmar Bank. So the idea seemed to be that if the trade has to be increased, it could be done through the medium of rupee chart transactions. The general particularly highlighted the fact that there is immense potential for expansion of bilateral trade, which stands today only at about $2 billion. But they projected that in the next 3-4 years, it can go up to $5 billion if sufficient efforts are made. And in this context, we must remember that Myanmar exports to India are far more than India's exports to Myanmar. So clearly there is scope for expansion on both sides. And one more thing, Myanmar is very keen, almost hungry for new Indian investments, going into various sectors in Myanmar. I believe Indian business leaders showed interest, and yet at the same time, I think they conveyed in a general manner that much will depend on how quickly stability and normalcy can be restored in Myanmar. So the challenge that the president and his government have to face are internal, and since obviously war is not the solution, not even the civil war, sooner or later, they will have to conduct dialogue with their own people so that Myanmar once again becomes a normal and peaceful country.
Mr. Bhatia, thank you very much for a lot of ground that we've covered and brought out some very important points in the Indo-Myanmar relationship and a lot of the dynamics of Myanmar's various aspects. I thank you, and till we will, I'm sure we'll have
Certainly.
another opportunity to look at the situation again. All the best to
Absolutely.
you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you very much, Colonel Saab. All the best to you.